After Tulsa Tough this weekend, Legion seems unbeatable in the USA Crit Series. Can anybody beat them? If so, how? And I want to cover one thing really quick with this. So first of all, before we talk anymore about this question, there was an article, I think, and it was actually just mentioned in the live chat too, but in the Wall Street Journal, and it was all about, it was talking about Justin winning in Tulsa, but it was also talking about kind of like juxtaposing that to the Tulsa race massacre that happened years ago. And when I was there, I rode by the monument and then stopped and read and learned more about it. And I just want to advocate that everybody do that. And I find that it was particularly, it was symbolic in my mind to see not only Justin, but Legion and what they stand for doing that and doing so in the face of like so much adversity that literally happened on that night, less than a block away from where our race course was. And I just thought it was a cool thing. So please go read that article and we'll link to that down below in the description. But first of all, there's something that I think that people need to realize. Legion is designed to do what they're doing. It's not as if everybody else is just slacking. It's that Legion is designed to be successful in this arena that they are choosing to really focus on. This is absolutely intentional. Like, this is why Justin's doing what he's doing. There's with USA Crit Racing, it's not the World Tour, right? We don't have the same depth of physical abilities, genetics, talent, whatever you want to say. We don't have the same. It's just that's how it is. So as a result, you have a finite amount of talent, a limited amount of talent, you might even say. And then you also have a limited amount of resources. There's much less money in USA Crits than there are in World Tour racing, right? So Amber's shaking her head. Yeah, good point. Yeah,
you're over. There's a lot more money in crits. Just that out
there. But there's overall, there's Team Ineos isn't going to come race a USA Crits, and Jumbo Visma, same thing, right? The big money tends to be not in USA Crits. So you have finite resources in terms of money and talent. And Legion has done a fantastic job at getting the resources and getting the talent, and then building up a team that is dominant. So that as a result, it's going to be hard for any team to be able to beat them because of the finite resources that exist and the ownership and the majority ownership that Legion has over that. It's really tough. And we were talking with the Cliff Bar guys after every night, a lot of head scratching, a lot of frustration, right? From a lot of these riders, because they're just like, we can't get around that. You try, you can't go around their train. And, you try to build a lead out train team. It's just not going to be as good. They have all the riders that you would want. They have them. So it's like, how would you build up a lead out train that would beat them? And then at the same time, it's like, and here's something really interesting. Zach, I think it was Zach Allison. Forgive me, Zach, if you didn't say this, but from within the race, he said that, and if you watch the racing, it's like a masterclass in how a lead out train team works, which is very similar to like UHC back in the day for USA Crits and to many different teams we've seen. But they have their riders on the front swapping poles, and the riders on the front are protecting the riders that are actually going to try to win the race. This is all logical. But here's what they do. The logic is, how do I beat Legion? By sending attacks up the road. They want to sprint at the end, so I'll attack. And if we can do breakaways, then that forces them to chase us down, and that tires them out, which works when you have a team less strong as Legion. When you have a team that's really strong like that, it doesn't work. But here's what they did. When a rider would go up the field, first of all, before that, they're riding more or less at like sweet spot on the front, right? So they're keeping like a sustainable pace that's hard. When you go around that, it's hard to go around it. But they're just keeping a pace that they know they can sustain, and that even just a couple riders or maybe even one rider can sustain for that whole race. So they're doing that. And interestingly, on the second day, it's going uphill. It has like a section where it went uphill and it got steeper, and then it went downhill. And the field would fatten up behind Legion every time it got steeper, because Legion's effectively riding it like they're in erg mode. Mm-hmm. Like they don't want to hurt their riders by, when they're going up that pitch, holding 24 miles an hour. They're going to let their speed slow down, so then they keep the wattage more consistent and don't tire out their protected riders in the back. But then over the top of it, they stay at that power, and suddenly it gets single file real quick, right? Because it's a lot, you pick up so much speed when you keep the power constant. So they're doing that. When a rider goes up the road, they let that rider get far enough out so that the rider feels like they can commit to the move. And then when that rider is committing to the move, then they just pick it up a bit. They don't want to chase those riders down quickly. They want to let those riders cook. So that usually lasts for somewhere around a lap, give or take a lap or half a lap, whatever it may be. And then 1 rider, 3 riders, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in the group. They just treat every one of these the same. And when those riders start to come back to them because they've just inched the pace up a bit and those riders are getting tired, when they catch those riders, they drill it. And I mean drill it. And you could see it. The field would go single file. And in many cases, what would you see Justin do and their other protected riders? They would slide back in the field in that acceleration. And then they would have other guys marshal them back up to the front after that acceleration. And the reason that they're doing that is because when a rider catches you, or when you're catching a rider, it's big danger time to be counterattacked by the rest of the field. So Legion, when they're starting to catch that rider and they just ramp it way up and throttle it on, nobody can come around that. So it nullifies counterattacks. And then they settle back into sweet spot and rinse and repeat. And that's what they do. And then at the end of the race, then they actually start burning their riders off, which they're incredibly strong riders. And as a result, when those riders are burning themselves off, good luck being the rider that can come around them and do that. And then if you can, what are you going to do at the end against their protected sprinters? So it seems pretty futile, but, and I know that can kind of sound like, disappointing or hopeless, but this is what a well-designed team functions like when their goal is a lead out trained team like this. It's tough to beat.
It's so, I just see I'm not sure if it's Corey or Justin who's the mastermind, but I see them doing like a piece of paper in 2014 and writing down all the things that they have to do to be dominant. So Justin and Corey are already really good sprinters, right? So they'd win and they get some lead out people, but then winning makes more people come on. They have a great brand in Legion, and they're also really good at marketing. And because of that, and they also have a great mission too. They get more sponsors. So with sponsors, then they get more press, and the low level riders want to be on that, and you can actually afford a better team. So it's like this cycle, this flywheel of, it's like a business gets going, then you can attract more top level riders, and then you win more, right? And then if you're a top level rider, like you said, John, there's not 500 people with a 480 watt FTP that can join in USA Crits, right? Those top people say, well, I want to be part of this train. I want to win every time. And they join the team too. It's like the Yankees or something, right? And then they win more, they get more sponsors. And then also inside of that, there's a skillful, high-level tactical, they understand the race, they understand racing, and they understand how to win in a certain way. And it's just this huge flywheel that if you are another team and you have, if Legion has 8 amazing top-level riders and you have 2, it's how are you going to do it? Because they execute so well and they practice and they race a lot. It's extremely hard to beat that. So I think we all agree Legion's going to be dominant until they decide not to. And then Masters racing, it's going to go crazy. And Justin said that on this podcast. He's like, we're going to do it.
Yeah. When it gets to, they'll be 65 just and they'll still be dominant.
World champs, all the way through Masters racing each year. That'll be awesome.
Well, another really important element is in that lead out train, they have a lot of people who are strong enough and capable enough of winning on their own. So you have to have a really strong culture within that team that appreciates and values the sacrifice and work of putting win-capable athletes into a lead-out train instead of having them be the protected riders. And that's hard to do unless you've got really, really good team chemistry. And one of the things that they do a great job of is showcasing that teamwork and highlighting it so it's not just a one-person show. They put on a show of teamwork. It's not just a show of a win or a victory. It's a show of teamwork, and they do a really great job of that. Otherwise, you're not going to, you won't attract that caliber of athlete to a team where that caliber of athlete feels like they're never going to have a shot or they're not going to be appreciated if they're willing to give up their shot.
Yeah, another way to look at this, you have Tyler Williams, you have Alec Cohen, you have Sam Boardman, and you have Ty Magner. And there are all these riders that were fixtures in that train this weekend. Another way to look at that, they're paid to not win. And as a bike racer that can win, that could be really frustrating for a lot of athletes. And that's probably why they don't fit the mold and they're not ready to do it. Now you're paid to achieve a collective win. However, they're likely paid much better than most of the other teams out there. They're getting a better salary than they would to be a winner on another team, because they're within this group that has all the resources. So it's really tough to beat a team when you have riders that could win and oftentimes do, as we saw Tyler Williams taking the win on the last day, but they're paid not to win to achieve a common goal for the whole team. That's just
everything you're talking about translates straight across to Ineos and how they approach climbs and Grand Tours. They've got 5 riders at the front of an 8-man group that can win.
Yeah.
Each one of those guys can win, but they've decided it's going to be, well, in their case, they have to decide which of the 2 is going to go for the win because they're that deep. They're that rich in talent. But it's the same idea. Each of those guys understands his role, knowing full well, I could win this race. If the team were working for me, I could win this race. I have the talent. But my job today is to see to it that so-and-so or so-and-so wins.
Yep.
I was going to say the exact same thing, Chad. But the difference is in a Grand Tour, it's made on a climb where the drafting is a very small benefit. Where Legion in a crit, if they're going 32 miles per hour, it's all about drafting. So sometimes you could have a more fit rider sneak by a train on a Grand Tour, but that's not going to happen in a crit. It's like the teamwork. It's way more important, I think, to have a really good team in a crit, or it's more valuable than on like Alpe d'Huez. Sure. And the amount of energy you're saving in your rider and the speed and the ability to go around people. And then you have the sprinting talent of Justin and Corey. That's amazing. And it's
more concentrated. It gets diluted when you're going up a climb for an hour, as opposed to when you have to make 15 minutes of a 90-minute race mean everything.
Yeah. We should the bet should be is Justin going to win or Corey? That's
This is something that all of us can probably relate to, because I think, in Amber, I want you to comment on this a little bit too, this solution to how to beat them. If you have a team like Legion that's that strong, and then you have an entire field, it's if the entire field finds collective strength and somehow works together. But all of us on a cycling team, we know how hard it is to get 3 people to work together. So imagine trying to get multiple teams work together. We all know this, when your friend was supposed to lead you out and he doesn't, or you were supposed to lead them out and you don't, and you chase them down, or you do something like that. We all make those mistakes. So I think that that's really the best shot, if you're just looking at it from a basic view, is to have everybody come together to find collective strength that can somehow go over that. But Amber, what do you think?
I don't see how. Sorry.
How do you beat? Yeah, exactly. Even then it's tough. But Amber, how do you think you beat them? What do you say is the best bet?
Well, like you said, it's really hard. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll try to keep it pretty short. So I've been on teams where we were the dominant lead out team and we were leading out. So we were doing exactly this. And I'll tell you what, when one person goes up the road, it is never a concern. Never. Because if you're on a team that has a lot of horsepower, that person not only has to be stronger than me, they have to be stronger than me and 6 of my teammates. And I don't care how strong you are, you're never going to be stronger than 6 riders working together who are executing really well and very motivated to bring you back. It's just not going to happen. So if a break is going to go up the road, it has to be an immediately organized and cohesive effort. And unless there's another strong team that's going to send a break up the road, which again, that's going to be unlikely because you're not going to have a bunch of people from the same team. What would probably need to happen is a lot of stars would have to align. You'd have a big enough break that's represented well, meaning that you have one rider from each team, so the teams whose teammates are in the break are not going to chase that down. You'd have to have those people all have a lot of horsepower and be extremely motivated to make the break stick and organize together immediately and not have any infighting or hesitation.
So you need to have 77 high risk things work out perfectly.
This is basically the description of a miracle. So if a break is going to go, it has to be a big enough break that's going to have enough horsepower that could compete with an all-out chase effort from a team like Legion, which is unlikely. Another way that this could happen, and let me just say, first of all, anyone can lose. It's possible for anyone to lose, even Legion. But their job, as Jonathan said, is to make it as unlikely as possible. Yeah, Chad.
Can I jump in? Because that's an extremely crucial point. Such a pithy statement, but anyone can lose. And time for some tough love, cold hard truth. But if you don't understand that, if you don't accept that and indulge that, you will not be the best bike racer you can be ever. You have to understand that not only can you lose, Because if you don't get that, then you're not going to try as hard as you can. You're going to underestimate one of your opponents. At some point, that's not going to pan out. And also, if you think that someone else, oh, they're gone, they're up the road, that's it, race is over, I'm racing for second now. That is not a mentality that brings with it wins. It just doesn't work that way. You have to accept that anyone can lose, including yourself.
Yep, exactly.
I think we'd be remiss too if we didn't mention the absolute dominance of their women's team over the weekend, and their fantastic results in the race that I was in the 1-2. I think that they won 2 out of the 3 races. So it's not just, they don't just win with the lead out train. Once again, they're able to do it in multiple different ways here. So it's, they're just dominant across the board.
I said this in Justin's episode, but this is the way I think that Legion could be challenged. And so Legion it had to be a very specific course where it goes into a last turn and then like 200 meters to the finish or 100 meters. And what Legion does is they'll have their lead out train and they will, if it's a right hand turn, they hug the right hand inside and then they come out at the very last moment to take that turn right. And they do that because they don't want anyone to come in on the inside. And there's even a video where I think Corey posted it, where they came out a little bit too early and somebody came in and it was, they tried to, cut on the inside and Corey said, hey, what did we do wrong? And that's what they went out too early. The way to get some team out of that is to have another team. So the way to get them to stop hugging the inside is if you had another team on the outside come start challenging their train and go faster so that they would then take that corner and kind of cut them off or not allow Legion to fan out and take that. So it'd be kind of squared off. And if I had multiple teams or it was like a video game and I could control them, I would have a team on the left side sprint like that was the finish. Like they are going 1500 watts on that straightaway. And their only goal is to get Legion to either come out to block them or to take that turn so that Legion has to hit the brakes or like, T-bone into them. If Legion comes out, I would send another team on the inside to take that inside corner. And that would also push Legion out and it would at least mess up their train. I think Justin and Corey could probably still make their way through there.
They'll still find a way to win.
But one of those is that last one. You kind of have to have somebody sprinting to lose in order to get that turn ahead of them and kind of mix it all up. Because if they come into that last turn in their train, there's no way. You can't go against them.
Yeah, what you're describing is kind of what we refer to as jumping the train. And this is, it's hard to do, but one of the things that makes their lead out successful or any lead out successful is when you have that horsepower, when they're actually doing the lead out, let's say it's if you're not too close to the finish, they're not going at 100%. They're only going to go as fast as they need to maintain control of the front. And often what happens is the rest of the field is actually happy to let them take control because that's work that they don't have to do. It keeps things safer for everybody else, but they're not going at 100%. So the second you start to send someone around them, they can accelerate to match that and keep that person from coming around them. And that's a good execution of a lead out. So the way that you handle that is you have another lead out train that's organized, and it's not about coming up on them. You have to attack as a train suddenly and with a great deal of acceleration, because you can't give them a chance to react. You have to take them somewhat by surprise, which is really hard to do when you're doing that with a train and not just individuals. But it is possible. I've done it. It's very hard to do. And you actually can't really do that in a corner. You kind of have to make it happen before the corner, because then if you can jump the train before the corner, now your train is in control of the line and in control of that corner. And then you have to maintain control. So you have to time it really well. If you do it too early, they can do the same thing back to you before the finish. But you have to time it, jump really, be 100% committed, just like we're saying, and then hope that you can get a fast enough acceleration to do that. Very, very hard to do when you're going up against a train that's so powerful and organized.
That's where that jumping, like, you almost need 3 teams, right? You need like a sacrificial team to be like, we're going to sprint like this. We're going to do a 40-mile-per-hour sprint right here in order to try to get in front of them, and then have another team do it and then another team do it. But timing it all right so that they can't come. It's crazy.
But think about this. This is one of the cool things, one of the things I love about bike racing. The only way to meet and beat incredible teamwork is with incredible teamwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the trap that a lot of riders fall into. They think, well, it's not the teamwork. I am going to play an individual card that's going to be tricky enough that it's going to work. And like you said, a lead out train just is like, okay, fine, great. You're going to cook yourself. And then when we catch you, we'll hammer it even harder. So then you just don't even ever have a chance to come back in this race. Right. So you're cooked, and then we'll hammer it. And so that way you are out of the race. And it was funny. That's what happened to most people that were attacking. Travis McCabe, no, because he's incredible. So he was able to go on attacks and then fall back in the group and then go back and do it again. But most people that attacked on day 2 there of that race, when Legion would throttle it and pass them, they were out. They were done. They DNF'd because it was so much pace they would get pulled. They just wouldn't be able to hold on. So one thing with this too. So for the jumping the train, the reason that it's so tough to happen, specifically in Legion's case, is they have sweepers on the back, and their intent is to create disruptions and to create a barrier for anybody to get past them. And they'll do that by altering pace and line choice, right? And they'll constantly be doing that. And then that makes it really difficult. So then when you are trying to stay on the back of the train, you're dealing with constant surges, having to take bad lines, having to do all of that stuff. So that's really tough. But then the other thing for jumping the train is, if it was us 4 up against Legion, we would never, ever, ever be able to jump the train. We just don't have the power to do it. So you have to have the power to do it as well. And they're such a well disciplined team that, man. So kudos to them. And it's really cool. I would hate it. Absolutely. If I was in the field racing them, it'd be super frustrating, but it's it will over time get boring for people to watch. So if it just like stays like this,
it's so fun to watch that kind of execution. I love it.
But that's the cool thing, is that like when you watch it, it's something to be admired, right? It's something interesting.
I like watching the Globetrotters. Just like bam.
I just want to say on the topic of the sweepers. So we started this conversation talking about racing aggressively, and racing for a win. And this is exactly what a lead out train does. So Legion was also in a race where most of the field has not raced for a long time. So they are also in a situation where a lot of people, their skill level isn't as fresh and as sharp as it normally is. People are racing reactively. It's not as safe as maybe some of the more dialed later season races. So what Legion is doing is they're protecting the team. So those sweepers, it might seem like they're just creating chaos, but their goal is actually to create space and buffer around the teammates in front of them. So you have the front part of the train is maintaining pace and control. Then you have the sprinters, but you don't want the sprinters to have to fight other sprinters in the field and protect the wheels in front of them. So they're being protected, and the teammates around them are there to create space and kind of a buffer to keep them safe. And what that does is it allows the entire team to race proactively. They don't have to react to what's going on because they have teammates protecting them from what's going on behind and around them. And that's really crucial. Again, brilliant and beautiful teamwork. It makes me miss bike racing. But these are things that you can do even with a smaller team, is help each other out and create space for each other in the field. Easier to do when you're in a field where the skill level is really high, but those are all skills that anybody can learn. It's not just an innate gift. It's something everybody can get better at.
Awesome discussion on race analysis. Makes me want to race even more now. Forgive me for clearing the throat there. Let's move into a question from David. He says, I'm working to increase my FTP and I'm about to start the sustained power build low volume plan. I then remembered that Chad once said your VO2 limits your potential FTP. How would I know that this is my limiter, and how would I train differently to increase my VO2? Chad, we have you here, which, by the way, for all of you that don't know, I have like a document of like many questions that we've been saving up here for Chad. This is one of them. So Chad.
It's pretty great too. I looked them over and I like literally every one of them. Okay. So with this question in particular, David, we talked about fractional utilization a while back. So we got into the nuts and bolts, got in the weeds, did the whole mechanistic thing. So I'm sure we can refer you to that. So instead, I'm going to take a different angle here and just kind of put this in maybe more general terms. So your VO2 max, it doesn't limit your FTP so much as set the upper limit for what your FTP is going to be, because your FTP is never going to exceed the power that you can put out when you're riding at your VO2 max. So it's that whole roof and ceiling analogy, where if your FTP is pushed up, the ceiling is pushed up so close to the roof that it can't elevate further, you have to raise the roof, and then you can create more room to actually elevate FTP. That's the idea.
I knew it.
Exactly.
I knew
that
Amber was
coming.
going to raise the roof.
Yep.
If you're listening on the podcast, you missed that. That's why you watch on YouTube for that very thing. So,
but this takes a very analytical and probably just a very insightful rider to understand if this is what's going on. So if you've done a lab test, or maybe you have a VO2 master and you can actually measure oxygen intake output and see, okay, when I'm operating at 65 milliliters per kilogram per minute, which is my VO2 max, this is the power I put out. Now this power is becoming dangerously close to my FTP. I really think I need to address my VO2 max. Okay, that's one side of it. That doesn't describe most of us. So really you just kind of have to look at whether or not it's actually stalled, because in most cases, I don't think it has. And I mean, most cases. So commonly FTP falls in the ballpark of about 80% of the power that you can put out at your VO2 max. So lab test or not, go out, do repeated 5-minute efforts over the course of a week or two, and you'll get a pretty good sense of what you can hold when you're firing on all aerobic cylinders. So the example I'll use, and it's a reasonably high number, but it's a round number. So you have a 300 watt FTP and you're going to do VO2 max repeats at 120% of that. Means you're going to be working for whatever length of time at 375 watts over and over again. Now, I think anyone with the 300 watt FTP knows that's a reasonable place to be. So it's in that ballpark. It's actually 360. I don't poor math there, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, sorry about that. But
we're all
just
poor
good
at math too, so we're bad
Yes.
judges.
Shake that rust off like John.
I even did this math prior to what? Anyway, so imagine an athlete who's pushed their FTP up into the 90s, and this is possible. Some athletes have done this. Some athletes can do this. They've got a tremendously high aerobic capacity, probably no anaerobic contribution at all, but they can get up into the 90s. So that same 300 watt FTP, hope this math is better, and they're now doing their 120% VO2 max repeats at like 330 watts, right? So when you start to see that narrow of a disparity between the power you can elicit at VO2 max and the power you ride at functional threshold, that might be a red flag. And an example of this would be Pete Morris, our very own Pete Morris. Love you, buddy. He's a rider who has ostensibly a very low VO2 max. Maybe he actually does have a low VO2 max. We measured it once at my house and it was surprisingly low for the amount of work he does. But that's the point. He can still do a ton of work. He can still perform really well. So is his VO2 max actually limiting him? Has he pushed up against that genetic ceiling and now he simply has to exploit the percentage or push up that percentage as high as he can get it? Or does he just not care because he already races really well and he trains in a way that supports how well he races? So who cares? Pete does well. If Pete decides he wants to do better, I mean, he can change a number of things. Maybe pursuing an improvement in VO2 max will be one of those things. But the point is that even if you have a stagnant or a plateaued VO2 max, 99% of us probably still have a lot of room to grow our FTP.
That's the truth. Absolutely. That's one of those situations where you get so concerned with one thing that has very little impact over your fitness that you forget about the other things, the many other things that you could do that would actually drive it further forward.
Yep, for real. And if I could offer David,
we all face, by the way, it's not like
it's
not like you're alone in this case, David, at all. Like,
it totally is. And because I put that out there at some point in time, people have glommed onto it, understandably so, but it's not as important as people think. I mean, focus on the more basic aspects of your performance and your physiology. And David, if I could offer you one particular piece of advice, it would be if you're on a track toward a specific event, just pick a plan and trust it. It's going to address those relevant energy systems and it's going to do it challengingly, progressively, and it's going to do it at the right time relative to when you need to be your fittest.
And two, this is why with adaptive training, we have the level system and that you can be at a different, this allows us to have a different percentage of FTP to VO2 max, like the relationship between for different riders. And two, it's not stagnant. So you're not stuck there all the time. You're like, I'm just this forever. It's going to change based on how you train and if you train, for some of us, right, Chad? What systems you hit and how often you're doing it. By the way, update on that, we have 4,680 people in the closed beta and we're adding another 800 athletes today. It's like 800 every other day at the moment.
Just more time in the basement. 800 more athletes.
Just
me
four
a
little
second.
fingers passing through the workout names and adaptations under the red door.
There's a little new animation too when you go to it. It's like checking for adaptations. It's just Chad like
It's just
clicking through.
Scrambling. Oh no.
So if it ever goes slowly, that's Chad is he's had a few too many beers.
Or you just overworked.
Bourbon.
Give him a little bit.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.